All right, so in these next two videos, I want to take some time to just kind of recap some of the stuff we've covered before we hit spring break. Because I don't know about you guys, but I tend to forget things when I have a lot of time off. Okay, so if you guys remember, just before we left, we did start Unit 5. And the big idea there was that Unit 5 is essentially the opposite of Unit 4. Okay, so Unit 4, if you guys remember, the idea there was using an equation, right? And I gave you guys different kind of formats, right? But the idea was using an equation to make a graph, right? And you had to know what certain pieces of the equation did and how that looked in terms of graphing a straight line, okay? And then when we started Unit 4, we barely started it before we left. But I said the general idea behind Unit 5 is going backwards, right? It's using a graph to get an equation, okay? So it really is basically going backwards, which means you have to have a pretty good idea of um, of Unit 4 in order to be able to do Unit 5. Okay, so in this video, I want to do a very quick recap of probably the most important thing from Unit 4, and then in the next video, I'll do a real recap of kind of what we talked about so far as it comes to Unit 5. Okay, so far with Unit 4, the stuff you need to know from Unit 4 was we did use this very key piece of information, right? The one equation I want you guys to be the most familiar with is this one, right? Y is equal to mx plus b, right? Slope-intercept. Okay, it was the nicest one because it was relatively easy, and you guys should have used it a lot, right? And just to quickly remind you guys, remember m, that stood for the slope, right? Or the rise over the run, or you can think of it as your up and down value on top of your left and right value, okay? And then the b value, that was your y-intercepts, okay? And the idea was this is your starting point, or it's always 0, comma b, whatever that b value is. You begin with b, and then you move with m, okay? This is going to be the most important piece from Unit 4 because, again, in Unit 5, we're going to work backwards. I'm going to give you guys the graph, and I want you guys to give me the equation in slope-intercept form, mx plus b, okay? So let's go and do a quick example together. Okay, so the question would be graph y is equal to 5/3 x plus 4. Okay, right away you should be able to see that it is slope-intercept form, right? Mx plus b. The other one, remember the other one was standard form, where it was ax plus by equals c. Looks very different, and it's a different process. Okay, but this one's going to come up more often than standard. Okay, okay. So start by identifying m and b. Okay, remember m is always that number that's in front of that x term. So m is that 5/3 value, and then b is always the number that comes later, so that +4. Essentially, that's all you need to be able to draw this graph. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw a 5x5 graph over here. If we need to make it bigger, we can make it bigger, but I would always start off with 5x5. Again, the nicer your graph, the easier it is to be accurate. Even my graph, because I'm trying to write kind of quick, it's a little bit sloppy. Okay, but the nicer your graph, the easier it gets. Okay. All right, so we begin with B. So our starting point is at 4. So we're starting at 0, comma 4, right? And we always start on that y-axis, that vertical axis, the up and down axis. Okay, so 0, comma 4 is 0 left and right, up 4 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4 would be here. So that's our starting point. Okay, and then our M is telling us how to move to our next point, because we only need 2 points to be able to draw a line. Okay, so the top number is a positive 5, so that would say to go up 5 spaces. The bottom number is also a positive 3, so that's saying go right 3 spaces. Okay, but we do run into an issue here. Right? If we look at our graph, if we're starting at that purple point, I don't have 5 spaces where I can move up, right? So you have 2 options here. You could just make your graph bigger, right? You could just extend it out, and then you have more space to go up 5, okay? Your other option, and it's kind of a trick, if this doesn't work, if you can't go up 5 spaces and then right 3, like there's not enough space, the trick is you are also allowed to do the exact opposite, because it's going to be the same line. Okay, so instead of going up 5, you could go down 5, and instead of right 3, you can go left 3. Okay, so you are allowed to do the exact opposite, and you'll get the same answer. Okay, so we can, instead of making our graph bigger, let's just do the opposite. Okay, so let's go down 5 and left 3. So from that purple dot, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then left 3. 1, 2, 3. Now you guys don't have to put those little tiny dots. I was just showing you guys as I was counting. You only need to show the 2 big dots. Okay, you have your 2 points. Draw your line, and then you're done. Okay. So again, this is the most common equation you're guys are going to run into, which is why I wanted to recap it. The idea with Unit 5 is I'm going to give you the equation, I'm going to give you the graph next time, and I want you guys to work backwards to be able to give me the equation. Okay, so kind of think about like how's the graph kind of set up, what's the key information the graph is telling us, and things like that as we go into Unit 5.